What is Samsung thinking? I'm kind of curious because they were onto something really good and then kind of lost the plot a little bit. I'm not really sure what's going on over there in Samsung, but they were onto something great, which I was super excited about and I even talked about. And then they're doing the same thing 2 years later and think it's just as good. Whenever they come up with a good idea, they do it and everyone gets excited, and then they don't really iterate on it and it just becomes the same old, same old. And that's what they did here in 2022. And I'm completely perplexed by this. A product that I was super excited about is no longer as exciting as it once was. I know you're confused, don't worry. We're gonna get into it, but it's more about the philosophy of what Samsung is doing. I'm gonna try to help them out today. Right after this.
This is, you listening to Travis.
What up, players? Welcome back. And for all you new people, welcome. My name's Travis and I do tech videos every single week and have a blast doing them. And today we're going to talk about the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE and why it's not as great as the S20 FE. So let's get into the video. So a couple of years ago, I actually reviewed the S20 FE and I had this to say. Let me tell you something, value for money, Samsung has knocked it out of the park. This phone actually has me kind of hyped because I feel like Samsung's finally listening and paying attention to the market. Ladies and gentlemen, Samsung has a winner on their hands and I can't say it enough. I love this phone, highly recommended. And as you can tell, I was super excited about the phone. I actually thought it was one of the best things that Samsung had done in a long time. They were a disruptor and even weren't afraid to compete against themselves. You see, the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE came out only 6 months after the Samsung Galaxy S20 series of phones, with most of the same specs at a $300 discount. That was absolutely insane, and I loved it. And it made the phone so popular, and I knew this would be the case, that it sold like bonkers. They even said recently that it sold over 10 million units in the past year, and that is phenomenal. But that's because that was a very special phone. It was a flagship killing / flagship itself phone at a price that was reasonable, especially considering that the flagship of that year, the S20 series of phones, was $300 more expensive for the base level. So Samsung had done it, and they brought back the FE series of phones. They actually have done this before, back when the Galaxy Note 7, which was one of my favorite notes of all time, blew up a little bit. It was bad. They brought back a fan edition later on for people who really loved that phone. So the fan edition is back, and I was really excited at the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE announcement that, hey, this was going to be an ongoing thing. We're going to see FE editions every year. And as hyped as I was for the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE and how much I told people they should go buy one, I was actually even more excited for the S21 FE last year, but it never came. Now, of course, a lot of this is outside of the control of Samsung. There were all types of delays that happened, and it got delayed until now, into 2022. And this now is a problem. You see, I believe Samsung misunderstood why the Samsung Galaxy S20 FE sold so well. It was because it was very disruptive with the same specs, or at least most of the same specs of its predecessor that was only 6 months old, and it was $300 cheaper. I think Samsung just thinks you just put out the same phone at the same price and things will sell just as well. But they're not paying attention. Now, this can't be overstated. Samsung, listen to this. This is the reason the S20 FE sold well, because it came out only 6 months after your S20. It was $300 cheaper, and it was basically the same phone. That's not what's happening now. You see, the Samsung Galaxy S21 FE, which I had been excited about and maybe would have been slightly more excited about last year, has like none of those advantages. It's being released a year after the S21. It's only $100 less. And at this point, you can get an S21 for about the same price. So why would you bother with the FE? And even worse, the S22 series of phones is about to be announced. So this automatically gets placed underneath the existing flagship. At least last time, it was somewhere kind of a kissing cousin side, kind of almost the same thing. This definitively is below the S22 series. And I think that Samsung just thought that the phone itself was special and the price point was special. Now, the price point was special, but it was relative to what was going on at the time. You had a $1,000 smartphone for the S20 and a $700 version that was pretty much the same. That's special, especially when it was only 6 months later. Now we have phones that are more powerful and bigger than that phone and better than that phone for less right now. So why get the S21 FE? I really can't think of a reason. And the thing is, they almost would have been better off just canceling the S21 FE and putting out the S22 FE later this year. And I'm also worried about the cadence. What happens now? If the S21 FE comes out now, the S22 FE might not come out this year, in which case, again, it becomes not special because it gets announced right before the 23. It makes no sense. And if the pricing isn't adjusted to make it much lower, then this phone becomes not special again. It's just a newer version of an older phone. What Samsung should have done was just forget the S21 FE and make the S21 one of the phones that they'll sell this year alongside the S22 series. Apple does this every single year. Well, they'll have at least one generation of phone behind in their line. You have a price point at every single thing and you're good to go. Here, you've essentially made the S21 FE dead on arrival. Again, it might be a great phone, but it no longer makes sense. You can get better spec phones for less, or at least the better spec version of that for around the same price. So, Samsung, listen to me. What made it special was timing and price. If you can't hit those two things relative to what's going on in the industry, you should just not do it. You're confusing customers and not giving them the value they deserve. What do you think? Leave me a comment below. And hopefully next year, or at least maybe later this year, the S22 FE comes out and makes it special again. I'll see you next time. Peace and love.